Welcome, everyone, to Artists Honoring Women, Season 2, Episode 6. My name is Amanda Rawson, and I will be holding today's conversation. First, we would like to begin this program by recognizing that while we gather in the Santa Clara County, we are gathered on the ethno-historic tribal territory of the Tami and Ohlone, who were related to the direct ancestors of the lineages enrolled in the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. The lands on which Santa Clara County are established continue to be of great significance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the Bay Area. We also recognize that the ancestors of the Muwekma Ohlone constructed and maintained the three Bay Area missions, Santa Clara, San Jose, and San Francisco. So, welcome. Welcome to Womanhood. For those that are new to learning about this project, the Womanhood Project was launched in 2020 by Santa Clara County Office of Women's Policy. It is a public art and digital media project that works with artists to commission interactive educational art that promotes historical contributions of women across all intersectional identities. The Womanhood Project will continue the conversation on women's recognition through public art. This will happen through community engagement throughout the county to learn what women we should honor, how we should honor them, and where. You can see the website below. So this year, in February 2022, we started the first pilot temporary public art project in downtown San Jose called Womanhood Anonymous No More. This is a artist residency that honors women's contributions to San Jose. This pilot project has really helped us continue the conversation around women's recognition through temporary public art. So Anonymous No More project is a start to other temporary projects that will develop as we continue to reach out to communities across the county to learn which women and groups we should honor, how we should honor them, and where they should be honored. The temporary public art project started in San Jose, but soon there will be more spanning across the county to explore through community engagement pop-ups how permanent projects can really take form as we venture off into this project. So now I want to welcome all of you to Season 2, Episode 6 of Artists Honoring Women. It's really exciting. Last year, we highlighted 7 artists across the nation whose work, art, and advocacy explored what recognition in public art looked like while reconsidering issues of representation and cultural equity. This season, so far, has highlighted 10 of the local artists who commemorated the women who contributed quality of life in downtown San Jose, Santa Clara County, and to the arts sector. Episodes 1 through 5 has featured artists Dana Harris, Tomiko Ras, Elba Raquel, Yolanda Vera, Sofia Arredondo, Suki Bryan, Melia Saito, Pentea Karimi, Julie Dang, and Jess Gutierrez. And they're all available on our YouTube channel. You can see the link below. Today, we continue this season 2 with artists Kathy Aoki, Alexandra Luong, and Isabella King, the remaining 3 artists of our downtown San Jose artist residence for Womanhood Anonymous No More. So first, I'd like to introduce our artist, Kathy Aoki. Kathy is a multidisciplinary visual artist who uses satire to critique the absurd value systems that dominate gender, pop culture, and politics. Her printmaking work can be found in major collections across the United States, including the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art and the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco. Kathy lives and works in the San Francisco Bay Area, where she is a professor of studio art at Santa Clara University. Welcome, Kathy. I'm super excited to hear your presentation today, so I'll let you take it away.
Okay, I'm going to start the slideshow. I was really excited to have Wiggsy Sivertsen as my honoree for the Womanhood Project. Wiggsy is just a beloved activist and advocate for LGBTQ plus people in the South Bay, and she personally experienced discrimination. So there's so many histories of her and a scholarship in her name. I was able to discover some important facts. So she first experienced discrimination herself when she was a counselor working with children, and she was outed and then actually forced to resign. And so that was an incident that it seems like really propelled her career in the direction that it went. As an activist, she spoke out against legislature that would have proposed a ban on gay people as teachers in California. And she also helped to stop a campaign by LaRouche, which was going to kind of segregate and quarantine people who had tested positive for AIDS. And in addition to that, she was a co-founder of the Bay Area Municipal Elections Committee, or BAYMEC. And then she's had a very long academic career at San Jose State University, where she's been a counselor, an advocate for students, and an activist. So this is an image of her in the Stop LaRouche campaign, sponsored by BAYMEC. So this is like in the 80s, I think around 80. I guess I should know this. I think in the mid 80s. And so she was one of the key players in this South Bay demonstration against the proposed legislation. I discovered this image in the San Jose archives thanks to the people who work in Wiggsy's office that she retired from, but still really honor Wiggsy and kind of treat her as if she still works there. So they were able to dig up some images from the archive, and this is from the San Jose Mercury News. And I really liked this image because she's seriously telling it how it is. And she doesn't seem to hold back. She's very upfront in her communication style. And so that's what I wanted to capture in the banner that I designed. You can see behind Wiggsy, there's some stripes, and those are part of the logo for BAYMEC. And also on the right side is the logo for the San Jose State University Pride organization. And so those were two key graphic elements that I wanted to combine to tell Wiggsy's story. So first I generated a bunch of sketches, and what I found interesting about the banner design, it was very long and skinny. So it was a proportional relationship that I hadn't worked with before. So I did spend a bunch of time trying to figure out how Wiggsy would be presented in the scene and where the graphic elements would go. Oops. And where the graphic elements would go. Oh, and then this is where I transferred my design to a block of linoleum. And I'm a printmaker, among other things. I also do sculpture and all kinds of work. But for this piece, I wanted to create a print. So I hand carved a piece of linoleum and with Wiggsy's face on it and some of the design elements. So if we could show the video, please. So here I am, I'm digging away at this material, and then the material would be inked up. So I'm carving away, and then I'm going to show you in the next slide the results of that process. On the left side is a print that I made by rolling ink on the parts I didn't carve, and then I ran that through a printing press. Then I scanned in this design and manipulated it in Photoshop to create the final image on the right. So things I was very happy about with this project is I really feel like I captured Wiggsy's likeness and her seriousness, but also she has a compassionate side too. So her mouth is a little bit different in the final, but I spoke with people that know Wiggsy, and they were happy with the likeness. So that was like a big win for this project.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy. I was going to ask you to talk about your process a little bit more, but it sounds like you went ahead and did that for us, and I really appreciate it. I think this is the first video we really got to actually see in a lot of from the other past conversations we've had. So I'm glad that worked out, first of all. Thank you for doing that. It's always great to see that process behind the scenes, because as somebody who's been walking by the banners, I've looked at them, and the past episodes, I've been able to learn things that I never would have thought that that's how the work was created. And so for yours, I wasn't sure if you did some type of etching or if you did graphic design work, but it looks like it was everything was done by hand, and then take a photo was taken of it, or how did it go from it being physically done for it to go online and then for us to print it for the banner?
So I printed it on a piece of paper, and I could have kind of drawn it on the computer to kind of look like that, but I feel like there's a lot of decision making that goes into the process of hand carving. And I also feel like I experience the content a little bit better when I do the things by hand as opposed to drawing through the computer. So for this one, I really wanted to kind of pay homage to Wiggsy by like hand carving the piece. And then I did digitally scan it. And then I did do a lot of like rearranging and putting elements here and
Oh,
there
okay.
in Photoshop. So if you, on my image, it's like I kind of like crammed a bunch of stuff into like one small piece of linoleum, knowing that I would be able to just like spread it out and make it blossom into the banner design later.
Okay, okay. And it's pretty cool to hear that this was a size you've never worked with before, because I've known your work for years now, and to be able and know that you've been teaching for some time. And so for me, it's always nice to hear of a new experience. Did it scare you? How did it make you feel? Like, were you up for the challenge and you were excited about it, or were you just kind of indifferent about it?
I was up for it, but I did make like an actual size banner, like on a big piece of newsprint in my
Oh,
studio to try to figure out what you might be able to see. So I'm used to having work that's on the wall and you could walk up really close to it and you can take in all these details. But so having something this large, but then also imagining it up high and away from the viewer, made me really simplify the design.
yeah, that makes sense. I think you're the first person so far who said that they've done it that way. So that's pretty cool to
Yeah,
hear.
like,
I
no,
like
I
that.
drew like a big rectangle that was like exactly the size that it was because I was kind of shocked when I'm like, "Ooh, look at the banner!" Like, oh my gosh, I better like understand what that feels like
Yeah,
before I got started. And then I
yeah.
made like little tiny like little rectangles that I did my quick sketches in. But
Okay, and that was
the
the
big
image you
one
had.
on the wall was like there the whole time. So I just needed to understand the scale of the project before I
Right.
started.
Right. I think that's fascinating. The process is always interesting. Which, speaking about process, did you get a chance to actually have a conversation with Wiggsy? Because I know you said you've talked with, her staff or past staff.
I did. I talked to her just a little bit, and it was great. She has been retired now for a while, and there's a scholarship in her name, and um, she's just so well respected. It's she still has a presence there, and she's also just still very active. So I was really excited to hear her energy, and you know, she talked about continued issues now and like how the politics, and you can just hear the energy in her voice has just continued even though she's retired. She's just like still going and going and
Yeah.
going. So
Yeah.
that was really exciting. And the photos that the people that she worked with at San Jose dug up, um, they were wonderful to look at. Like there's like an image of her like in a race car, and because she used to do race car driving, and she's a recipient of all these awards. So there's like very formal presentations,
Wow.
and then there's also like this image of Wiggsy telling it, how it is.
Yeah.
And so it was a great experience to hear from her directly, and then also to see some of these images that were like also tell more stories about her past.
Yeah. I love the image of her with the banner. And I took note of it because the Stop La Rouge banner, because she's the only woman that you see in the image. I don't
Mm.
think I saw any other women in that image, and that just kind of speaks to the following image that you shared about that kind of seriousness in her face, but you know that it's not seriousness of anger; it's seriousness of a passion. Um, and she's there standing not only for herself but for those in her community, right?
Yeah,
And I think like your image for me, as I hear you talk more about it and about her constant work ethic, even after retiring. Clearly, work wasn't just work for her; it was part of her life, right? And so, there's a lot of movement, and the lines in your work in the work that you created have, to me, visually have a lot of movement. And so as I hear you speak of that, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm visualizing in my head when I think about your piece is, oh, well, this is fitting. Like it all makes sense. And this is why we get to have these conversations, because I'm learning that, what you artists are thinking about, and I love it.
Well,
So
thank you.
yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Have you, because I know you've done other work, and I shared your bio, but have you done any other work that commemorates an individual or groups that we
I
should be aware of and know about?
I have there's so an early series of my work was about women with tools, and so there were some Bay Area women construction groups that were like really into that work and used it for publications and other things. So I was able to connect with that group. I've also made work about Japanese internment camp, and that's one of the more it's one of the heaviest pieces I've made, and I only made one of them. And my father went to internment camp. He and his family went to Topaz, and so um, that was a pretty tough piece to make because I was just very angry, which is like
Yeah.
the opposite of making this piece for Wiggsy, where I'm just excited to be honoring her and hoping to capture some of that energy for advocacy.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And it sounds like in those, I mean, they all sound like very different ways to tell a story, right? The ones that you shared, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I can only imagine what that brings up. So I'm going to go to a different question. um, so, what would you recommend future artists participating in projects like these? What would you recommend for them to be aware of, or any advice? And you're a professor, you're a teacher, and so, like, I guess this is also probably a really great question for me to ask you, because I feel like maybe you provide advice for your students too. So if they were to take this type of project on, what are your thoughts?
I think it's definitely worth trying to get information directly from the honoree if you can, and those close to the honoree, rather than just going with just kind of like a surface thing. I
Yeah.
was also extra fortunate because Wiggsy has been interviewed so many times. So I heard her telling it like it is, like over and over and over again in different ways at different points throughout her career. And so listening to her speak directly was important
Yeah.
as I thought about the work. I think it's great to gather as many images as possible, and I like to try to add something new also to the design.
Hmm.
Um, so getting that whole vocabulary of many different elements to work with, I think, made it easier to put the things together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you spoke on the symbols, and you showed us, by breaking them down first and then bringing them together. For me, that was easier to see, particularly the Baymac. I wrote it down, the stripes that are part of the Baymac logo. I mean, I kind of saw those stripes in the image as I've walked by them, but I didn't truly associate them quite yet with the Baymac until you mentioned it. Of course, I can see the Spartan, and I can see the flag, and that makes that speaks vibrantly. Um, so I think there's something about that too, because even though I didn't know it, for people who are looking at those images, who are curious, they're gonna research it, right? And I think that's why, for me, as not only the person working on this project, but someone who's interested in the arts, of which I know a lot of young people and just people out there are in general, they would go and do their homework, if they're curious enough, right? And so having those that symbology present in the background, it's another way to tell a story, and it's just, I think it's fantastic. It's kind of like, hidden images that you
Yeah,
search for.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think just visually, there was like a lot of color there that I could leverage as well.
yeah,
So I really liked having those palettes, and I have seen so many images that I felt like I'd really landed on like the right direction for the project.
Yeah, it sounds like there was a lot more images to work with than maybe we would have realized. I mean, I know there was a lot of photos of Wiggsy, and that makes sense, but images that could work in a project like this. So you really had to nail it down to a small number because of the size, it sounds like.
Mhm.
Yeah. Why did you pick Wiggsy? Because everybody had the opportunity. Have you heard of her before?
I knew of her, but I didn't really know her story,
Hmm.
and so uh, well, when we think about, I have to say, as an artist, in some ways, it's easier to make your piece about someone who's not an artist because there's a very big temptation to incorporate that artist's work
Hmm.
within the project. So um, it was kind of a decision that if I chose someone like outside of my field, then like what would that feel like?
Yeah.
And then also I would be free to create something new without like stepping on the toes of the great work that came from someone who's already like made great visual work.
Yeah.
So and I don't know. I just was very excited. I mean, Wiggsy is such a go getter and
Yeah.
has really made big changes. And so I was just excited to honor her. There were, so many on the list that could have happened as well. And
Yeah.
so any of them would have been like terrific. But I was pretty stoked when you said go ahead with Wiggsy.
Ah, I love that. Because I just started learning about Wiggsy for this project, so it's pretty cool to like, hear your thoughts on her. And since that work has been created and put up, I've been hearing people say that they've seen your work or they know Wiggsy or just comments here and there. And I'm like, wow, this is what this is all about, right? That's what this kind of project is all about. So, you know, as you said, there was many other women that were recognized, and we're a big county, right? We're 15 cities, 5 districts. Are there any other women that you would nominate to be honored, or any groups of women, or who you want to be who you would like to see represented through this project?
Yeah, there were. I guess I have like three people that I
Okay.
was thinking about also. So one of the first is Flo Oi Wong,
Oh,
who's a Sunnyvale artist, and she is someone who um, has brought the stories of being a Chinese American to the forefront. She was an educator and didn't turn to art until her 40s, and then really started telling these stories with her work and made a big impact on the community. So she's shown like, nationally and she's still going. And so she would be a wonderful choice. And I think she's located in Sunnyvale.
yeah, she's great. I'm glad you're fine. I'm glad you
And,
mentioned her because I've met Flo and she's amazing.
and then when I was researching who might be an honoree, I discovered Mary Parks Washington, who was an African American activist and artist for the arts. And she passed away in 2019, but she was an inspiration to Ruth, I
Oh,
don't know how to pronounce, yeah, Ruth, can
yeah,
you
Ruth
pronounce?
Tunstall Grant.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and she was someone who would find ways to support other African American artists in the scene, but also kind of energize the San Jose Art League. So she has like a very active history that I wasn't aware of. So she was part of the Friends of Edmonia Lewis group
Okay,
in the
yeah.
South Bay and helped to get those pieces in the San Jose Public Library. But she also did things like help bring Elizabeth Catlett, who is an African American artist living in Mexico, find a way for her to visit the United States because of politics at the time. It was difficult for her to come. So she was very empowering. And I didn't know about this artist except that I was reading a book by the third person, who is Jan Reinflesch.
Oh,
She is
yes,
former
Jan.
curator of the UFRAT Museum at De Anza Community College. And she has had such a rigorous programming, like a history of programming there, where she brought in many different themes, many different feminist themes, many different just um, uh, open to the minorities and overlooked communities, and bringing the artwork together for those projects. And then like
Yeah.
even like had a show, like I mean like the full gamut, including like, you know, feminist work, and then like a show on like, I don't know, video games. And then so she brought together so many different peoples and artists, and was just a real powerhouse in making those visible, while she was directing the Euphrat Museum. And then she wrote a book about the, you know, history, like the roots of
Mhm.
arts and arts advocacy in the South Bay. So her book is called, I think it's Roots and Offshoots.
Yep.
And so that was the book I was looking at when I discovered Mary Parks Washington. So I really feel like Jan is another person to be honored, because she was able to give voice to all these different artist groups throughout her career.
I think those are great suggestions. Thank you. I really love those because I know two of those women, and I have Jan's book, and it's been a while since I've looked at it, so I have to go back and look at it, because clearly there's a lot more information that it just kind of, you know, you get bombarded with information sometimes, right? So, but yes, Jan Flo, amazing. I met her when I was at the Cologne Textile Museum. Her work is just powerful. And Mary Perks Washington, I'm going to have to look her up a little bit more and find out what she's doing. So thank you. I appreciate you being incredibly thoughtful about those suggestions,
Well,
because it's appreciated.
oh,
Yes.
I'm so, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to be involved in this project. And I just really love the opportunity to make the banner. So thank you to everyone, you know, in the Art Builds community and the whole Womanhood project. It's been a great project to be a part of.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad, because I'm just so happy to have you, you know, as one of the artists, Kathy. I've been, like I said, I've been following your work for a while. So it's just really cool to be able to sit here and talk with you, and also just learn a little bit more about your process. So
Thanks.
thank you again for your time, Kathy, and the work you've created for the Womanhood Project. We are going to take a quick break, and we will be back to listen and learn from our next artist. Welcome back, everyone, to Artists Honoring Women. I'm really excited to introduce our next artist and guest. I'd like to introduce artist Alexandra Luong. I want to make sure I'm saying your last name correctly. So, Alexandra is a marketing professional by day and an artist by night. She has lived in many places, but was born in and has spent most of her life here in San Jose. She creates works of art centering around her interests, namely food and fashion, as well as to honor her Vietnamese heritage and the cultures around her. She is a predominantly digital artist, although she occasionally dabbles in traditional mediums such as inks and acrylics. Welcome, Alexandra. Super excited to hear your presentation and have a conversation with you afterwards. I'll let you take
Yeah,
it away.
happy to be here. All right, so just to talk a little bit about the banner that I designed, the official title was Rock On Phuong Tam. But I wanted to create a banner to honor a pioneering Vietnamese rock singer, Phuong Tam, and it draws heavily from inspiration from her Magical Nights album cover, as well as pop art and rock band posters that I did some research on. And as a digital artist, my main focus has always been on really bold colors. I love working with color, and I spend a lot of my time thinking about, you know, the ideal color combinations and palettes that will help me tell my story through my work. I also really focus on graphic line work, and that I think comes from my influence, you know, growing up reading comic books, Japanese manga. That really stuck with me, and that's always been something that I've wanted to utilize heavily in my artwork. But for this banner, I really wanted to focus on something that would evoke that energetic and rebellious nature of Phuong's music. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So the reason that I wanted to honor Phuong Tam was growing up. So my parents were Vietnamese immigrants, and you know, I had always kind of felt a little bit disconnected from my culture. mostly because, growing up, my parents tried to speak mostly English with me because they had thought that it would help me succeed in school. And I moved around a lot when I was a kid, and there were a lot of times where I was disconnected from, Vietnamese communities. And it's only until recently, as an adult, that I realized, the impact of that sort of disconnect had on me. Kind of feeling like I didn't really belong in, the Vietnamese community, and sometimes even in like U.S. community. Like as a child of immigrants, sometimes you kind of feel that sort of disconnect in both cultures. And so, as an adult now, I've been trying to use art as a way to connect with Vietnamese culture, with the culture of my parents, and to honor it that way. And I knew from the start of the Womanhood Project that I wanted to honor someone from the Vietnamese community, if possible. But I had actually not heard of Phuong Tam prior to this project. And so after reading a little bit about her, I went on YouTube to see if I could find her album and listen to her music. And I was instantly hooked because, growing up, when I thought of Vietnamese music, I had always thought of Paris by Night or like Cai Lung or something, and not rock and roll music, and especially not like a female rock artist. So being able to honor somebody who was a pioneer in the Vietnamese rock scene, back during a time and in a culture where women were generally expected to be like quiet and docile, that meant a lot to me. Next slide, please. So as a primarily digital artist, my process usually begins and ends on my iPad or my laptop. The iPad is great because it's so portable, and I can sketch and do everything, in one place. And I kind of laid out my process here, and it looks like it's just 3 steps, but it's really not linear. I would say that sometimes it's more like cyclical. I spend a lot of time in the beginning phases doing research, and that could be, just looking up images on Google. I found these great album covers that really spoke to me. And so I think I was lucky in this case that right away, that Magical Nights album cover is just great. The colors really spoke to me, and I kind of knew right away that I wanted to use those colors again in my design. It's cyclical in that it's not just research, then do the sketch and then finalize. Sometimes I do research and then I do the sketch, and then after some feedback, I go back and do research again, and it's kind of like a cycle until I can get to the final process. So it's never really linear. But I would say that it was great talking to Hannah, because she gave me really great feedback about my initial sketch, and that was, Phuong was a pioneer in this genre. Rock is, really, it's badass, and it's rebellious. So it was important that we got that sort of energy from the design. And so I think Hannah's feedback was, can you make her face look more fierce? And I think that was really great feedback, and that really helped me to get to my final design, because I think, when you're trying to honor somebody who's, done such amazing work, sometimes, at least for me, I felt almost a little bit insecure, like, is this good enough? Or am I making her pretty enough because she's like beautiful? But then I realized, like, yeah, like, why am I being so delicate about this when, Phuong's music and the subject isn't really delicate at all? It's rebellious, and it's like, it's badass. So make her look badass. But yeah, that was pretty much how I got to the final design. It was just a lot of research, great feedback, and drawing inspiration from material that was already there. And in this case, that was Phuong's music. I listened to her album like nonstop while I was drawing this, and then getting feedback from Hannah, which was really great.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you. I loved everything you shared there. You shared a lot in a little amount of time, and I took notes, of course. Not only did you share your process of the artwork and from start to beginning, and what you typically work in, and so forth, which you can kind of start seeing as you look at the work that you created and then the way you're describing it, but also sharing your own personal experience. And I I get it. I mean, I know others who have gone through the same and think this and have thought the same way, and so there is that kind of sense of loss, right? And which is why this storytelling of these amazing women who have done or are doing incredible things is important. I mean, I said this more than once in other conversations. I'm saying it again because it needs to be said, right? So I know there's going to be people who see your banner and they're just going to be like, who is that? I want to know who it is. And they might be somebody who is in that middle of uncertainty, right? And trying to understand where that next step is. I think it's amazing what you created, Alexandra, and I love the colors. They're like my favorite. I was either going to wear this or a green today because I knew we were going to be talking about your work. So because I love it, I love it, and I too have been listening to Phuong's music, and I don't speak Vietnamese, I don't understand it, but I think the sound is incredible, and I bet it was just this like magical feeling listening and creating at the same time. So thank you for letting us know that little insight there. um you said that you quickly knew you wanted to recognize a Vietnamese woman when you started this project. So, and you didn't know about Phuong, but did you, when you saw her name, did you just gravitate towards saying yes to creating work based off of her story?
So yeah, I saw her name, and then underneath, I think the description, it was just one line, was pioneering rock artist, and I was like, what? Like, you know, what is like, who is this? And so yeah, it was like first like I think props to you guys for having that really great one liner, because I was immediately hooked. And my parents listened to rock music when I was growing up, and it was mostly actually American rock music.
Yeah,
And so I had already been a fan of rock music, but I never really heard of many Vietnamese rock artists.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, immediately when I saw that, I was like, okay, I gotta like find out more about this woman, and
Mhm.
it's history from there.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can't take the credit for that one. We actually have the person who we learned it from, who's with us tonight, David Ma, who is, I feel fortunate enough to say, a friend and also a music journalist who was the writer of the article that we learned about Phuong Tam, Vietnamese first rock and roll recording artist rediscovered in San Jose, in Metro. Right, Dave? Is that
Yep,
correct title?
that's
Perfect.
that's exactly it.
Okay, thanks for joining us. I don't know if the two of you have met. So David is, as I said, he's a writer, music journalist. I go to him about different music on my own, and kind of randomly, and get to learn about some really cool sounds. And he brought this. He presented this on his social media. We were like, "Who is that? We want to know who this is right away." Colleagues reached out, and David, you did a fantastic introduction for us. We appreciate it so much. And maybe you can share a little bit of how you found out about Phuong, and give us some insight on what you learned, because I think like the story is just, there's got to be layers there that we just haven't heard yet.
Yeah, I heard of the story through just online. I think the first place that covered the story was The Guardian, and The Guardian is one of the outlets that I've written for. And so when I saw it, I mean, a lot of the stuff I do already is music related. I teach a class on hip hop at San Jose State. I run a record label at Needle the Group Records. I collect records, so I'm into music. So just from a music standpoint, I was really already into the story and captivated. But then in the original Guardian article, it mentioned that she was from San Jose. So then I was like, what the? So I definitely wanted to take that on. And I think it's important that we tell our stories, and we meaning immigrant stories, right? Or people of the diaspora. Like we need to have that sort of sense of agency. I did not want anybody else telling this story, especially since Phuong is from San Jose, and and her daughter is mentioned in the article and had a big hand in bringing everything to the forefront. And so one of the local outlets that I dabble for is the Metro. So shouts to Mike Huguenot, who was my editor, who kind of allowed me to have free reign. And in the article, I talk a little bit about the Cambodian genocide and a lot of Vietnamese history, and all of that was to give context to why Phuong's story and her music and her journey is so important. And so that's how I came about it. And I do what I always do, which is kind of reach out to the artist, reach out to my editor to kind of see where the pieces can fit. And the response has been great. So, I mean, I do a lot of work on all types of music. A lot of it is hip hop or soul related. But the feedback from this and the response has been great. So, and to see Alexandra's wonderful work is awesome too.
Yeah, I think you created waves. Like, yeah, people, yeah, right. I mean, she was already there, and you just kind of gave her one more step, and we all are getting a chance to see her in this other light. And it's not new, but it's probably been there. And I want to ask Alexandra, have you done any other work where you've commemorated an individual or groups before?
So not a work of like a public work, but there was a time in my job, we actually had a Women's History Month celebration. And for that, I did a digital portrait of my grandmother based off of a black and white photo of her in Vietnam. And with it, I kind of wrote a short description of her and her story. But, she was a single mother who had 3 boys. And so when she fled the country, she had these 3 young boys, like one of them was like not even like a year old, I think, with her. And so just, being able to tell her story, even if it's, in a smaller space, like at my work, and it's not like super public, was important to me. So just telling those stories, the immigrant stories, story of my grandmother, that was something that meant a lot to me, and I hope to continue doing things like that in the future.
I love that. I think that goes to what the other thing I wanted to ask was, is there anything you would recommend to artists who would be coming to do a work like this, doing a commemorative kind of public artwork? Anything that you learned?
I think it was mentioned before, but I would agree that getting in touch with the source, the person that you're going to commemorate is really important. In this case, I was really busy with my day job, but I was able to connect with Hannah over email, and that was invaluable in terms of getting to my final product. Just her feedback about the expression, I think, helped me so much. It really made me step back and think about, why was I actually doing this art? What am I trying to evoke? What emotions? And how am I going to actually do justice to Phuong, right? That was to really make sure like her fierceness came through, So yeah, getting in touch with, somebody who is close to you or the actual person, I think is invaluable to be able to accurately tell that story.
Yeah. Dave, I wanted to ask your thoughts on that. I mean, with what we all got a chance to watch the slides, and the way that Alexandra kind of portrayed Phuong in the image, like as you spoke with her, obviously, and Hannah, did that come through for you? Kind of that fierceness, and I mean, what are your thoughts on the work and everything that's happening with this Womanhood project?
On Phuong's work or
Alexandra's work that representing.
Oh, I love it, and this is my first time meeting Alexandra. So I think her work is colorful, both literally and figuratively. I mean, literally in the aesthetic presentation, right? I mean, it's very colorful, right? Even Phuong's lipstick is like bright red, so I mean that's dope. But I think figuratively and sort of it's nuanced in the sense that, it contains like the colors of the Vietnamese flag, but like the Southern flag and things like that. I think it just comes back to us using our sort of overt connections to amplify these important histories that, typically are marginalized, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you write about music in all these different platforms for different. When I say that, I guess I mean like the different sources. Is that the correct word? I'm hoping I'm using the correct word. um, I can only imagine the type of stories that either you've learned by being the writer or by reading. I'm
Mhm.
curious, just as you're listening to us talk about this, um, has there been any women that you have written about that we should be aware of, or maybe not even just from California, but musicians out there, or for not even just from Santa Clara County or San Jose? I mean, you must have this knowledge of women that have just done amazing things where you've, you know.
Yeah, through journalism, regardless of what outlet I write for, I have to do a huge, enormous amount of research.
Mhm.
And it's funny you bring that up. Right now, I'm working on a story on a lady named Patricia Chin, who is technically she's a Chinese Jamaican lady who is the matriarch of reggae music. And you would not think that a little Chinese lady is a matriarch of Jamaican music, but so it ties into the diaspora of Chinese people in Jamaica, and she ended up through the years. She famously owned a studio in Kingston in the 1960s where Bob Marley first recorded, where Lee Perry first recorded, and she's like an 80-something-year-old lady now. And actually, I'm working on a story for her right now, and it's going to be for Wax Poetics. It's going to
Of
probably be
course.
published in a few weeks, a few months.
Okay.
And I got to speak with her. She's super spry, just wonderful, wonderful history. And again, like it's my ignorance to be surprised by the fact that this little Chinese lady has this booming Jamaican accent. And it's beautiful, and it's yeah, that's something I'm working on. And that's something I just sort of learned myself. I mean, I'm a super music nerd and sort of historian, but that was new to me. And she has a new memoir that's out.
Wow.
And that's sort of how I connected with her and through her. And that's what I'm learning about right now on a personal basis. And hopefully I can sort of funnel that and share it with the world pretty soon.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I ask you that because I feel like that's a great example of what we're doing, right? We're learning about these women that are doing these, that have done or are doing really interesting things, or been a part of communities that we just didn't know, we didn't know about the things that they did. And
mhm, mhm,
and it's just, it's either you're writing something, you're drawing, you're making visual work, or performing artwork. It is all incredibly important, for us to have accessible,
mhm.
right? I mean, now I'm gonna like take note of that wax poetic that's gonna come out. Right?
Yeah, I'll send you a link to the book. It's awesome. Fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all. I've given tours of the banners. I don't know if you know this, Alexandra. I've given tours of the banners, and people were like, "I had no idea who that was." When I talk about funks,
Mhm,
because that one, people, I mean, they all of them were amazing. We've got some incredible artists in San Jose. We all know that. But
mhm.
the 13 women artists we picked for this pilot project just did it. You guys did a fantastic. You all did a fantastic job. But your colors always pop for people, and I think it's also the placement, because we turned the corner and it's like right there. And I recently gave a tour, and just the people wanted to know right away, who is this Phuong Tam? I don't know. I want to know more. I want to know more. And I was like, all right, let me send you some more information or what else I can find. So I just had to share that and let you know that it's been an incredible experience. Thank you both. And before we end, I want to bring in our honoree and her daughter really quick so she can say hello. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
So, what did you think? You got a chance to see the slides and listen to Alexandra and Dave. How do you feel about being honored, Fung?
I'm so proud of Alexandra Luong. She's a Vietnamese.
I
Yeah.
my mom is a little speechless, but I'm gonna tell Alexandra that her poster is absolutely amazing. It has, like David said, so much information in just this one poster.
She has this beautiful black traditional hair. Very there's no jewelry on her, just lipstick and nail color that matches the red label of the vinyl.
Mhm.
And she's peeking behind this vinyl. It's almost like she's been unknown for 55 years, and now we just see a glimpse of her behind this music. And then she's wearing this traditional aoyai, which is it's very like Alexandra said, it's very demure, it's quiet, it's expected,
Mhm.
and then on the banner it says rock on. I mean, there's just so many wonderful nuance in this poster, and I just love it. I love it. It's like she's not a secret anymore. You know, you see
Yeah.
a little bit of her face, you see her eyes peering through this music, and now everybody knows who she is. And I have to say, I'm her daughter, and I didn't even know her music. So I can't even imagine what you guys must have thought. What you said was exactly what I went through when I was growing up. That was my parents' music, the gailung, the bolero, the slow ballads. And I loved American rock music. I grew up with Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin. And so it was like my parents' music. So when I heard this, it was like this instant connection to my culture. And she was living under my roof, or I was living under her roof. And so it was just a wonderful discovery. And I had no idea when I did this. I really, I really put this album together because I wanted to set the record straight. When I was looking on YouTube, her name was mislabeled in a lot of videos.
Mm.
And I said, man, the only way that we can tell everybody that this is your recording is to produce an album. Because she at one time said to me, can you tell them to take the video down because it's not my name and it's not my picture? And I said, no, once somebody uploads it, you can't take it down. And so, and I did it just to set the record straight. But what has happened since the album was released in October is that it touched young Vietnamese first and second generation who have lost their connection with Vietnamese music. And like what Alex said, and David said the same thing. It's like, oh my gosh, who is this woman? And now I have a piece of that Vietnamese history that I can connect with. And then it opens doors to your culture a
Yeah.
little bit more through music. And I love
Absolutely.
what you said, Amanda, about how you didn't even understand a word, but yet you love the music. So it reaches all level of people who are music listeners.
Mm-hmm.
You
It
don't even
absolutely
have to,
does. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. There's a sound to it. Like you. It's almost like it probably wasn't supposed to happen, but it happened for a reason. You know what I mean? Because it's surf music, surf music, which was so American. If I tell me if I'm wrong, Dave, because
Yes.
I could be saying that, but I view surf music as American as or just non vocals, like no vocals, just instrumental. So to hear it in Vietnamese, and I grew up in East San Jose. It's like Latino and Vietnamese, like so. I never when I would hear Vietnamese music, it was the slow ballads that I didn't also understand. But this was like, okay, I get it. I'm Mexican. I'm not as connected to my Mexican roots as I would like. So that story of that in between, right, for your culture, and then finding that way in with your culture, that speaks to for so many people, right? And you just feel it, and I love being able to be introduced to this. So thank you, Fong, for creating the music that you did. We all love it.
You love
And you're still gorgeous, so I don't know how you do it, but you still
And I
are.
have to say thanks to David Ma for reaching out to us. And I think his phone call to us was when I started to realize that this album has reached out to the young Vietnamese generation. I had not anticipated that this would happen, but then to have David call us, and then Alex wanted to
Yeah.
do a piece of work on my mom, I just think that the album is much more than what we put
Yeah.
at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. David is our glue. He brought us all together. So thanks, David. We appreciate you introducing us. Seriously.
And
Appreciate it.
here,
Yeah.
see, we have it right here.
Aw.
On our table for everyone to see.
I love it. Well, thank you all. This was amazing. We had such a great conversation. I could keep going, but we have very little time. So, but thank you for your time. And I just want to say thanks again to Hannah. Thank you to Dave for joining us tonight. Thank you, Phuong, for doing what you do and being our honoree. We're excited that you were able to join the conversation today. And thank you, Alexandra, for saying yes to being one of our artists and deciding to create the work that you did and sharing this evening what you did in your process. Everybody, let's just we want to take a short break, and we're going to be back with our last guest. So stick around. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our conversation. I'd like to next introduce our last artist for this evening, which is Isabella King. Isabella is a multidisciplinary artist and museum development professional based in San Jose, California. She studied studio art and English with a concentration in creative writing at Wellesley College. Female empowerment and women's issues are a point of passion for her and her practice. Following graduation, Isabella moved to Honolulu, Hawaii, where she worked at the Honolulu Museum of Art and maintained her art practice. After 2 years, she relocated here to San Jose and began working at the San Jose Museum of Quilts and Textiles. Super excited to have you here, Isabella. Looking forward to seeing your presentation and having a conversation with you afterwards.
Hi, thank you, Amanda. That was a really great introduction. I will go ahead and start sharing my slides. All right, so hi everyone. I'm just so happy to be here and so happy to be part of this project. I first heard about this project from one of my colleagues at the San Jose Museum of Quilts and Textiles, and she was really enthusiastic about this program and about womanhood and Art Builds community. I had never heard of it before because I had recently moved to the area. And she kind of gave me the rundown and I was like, this is something I really want to be a part of. So I was really great. It was really, really fun to get to know everyone. And I was, because I was new to the area, I didn't really know much about San Jose's history or the women who helped build it. And so when we got our list of women, it was really just a pleasure to get to read through that list and learn more about them and about their accomplishments. And I was assigned Adrienne Keel, who I didn't know anything about before this project, but I was really lucky to get to talk with her over Zoom and learn more about what she's done. So I'll just go to the next slide here. So this is Adrienne with her final piece. You can see it's life size, just about. And when I had my conversation with Adrienne, one of the things I was really struck by was just her ability to build community anywhere she went. Adrienne's been the LGBTQ plus youth professional advocate for over 10 plus years now. She works at the LGBTQ Youth Center LGBTQ youth space at Kaminar. And she's been the director there for about 4 years now. And when I got to talk with Adrienne, we had a conversation about how she got into this work and how she sort of built these skills to create community and create spaces for people who don't feel like they have spaces, that they belong. And so one of the things she shared with me was that she got her start at the Billy DeFrank Center, just getting exposed to how people build communities for themselves. And one of the things she shared with me was that she remembered the Billy DeFrank Center having a purple walls on the inside. And then she said, oh yeah, and also our colors are purple at the LGBTQ youth space. And so we just kind of had this moment where we're like, wow, purple is important to this story and important to her. So we decided to kind of move forward with that color scheme. And when I make work, a lot of times what I do is I have a large fabric stash as a fabric artist, and I kind of go through and see what speaks to me for the project. I kind of collect fabrics and used clothing, used upholstery fabrics, and those sorts of things. I kind of rescue them and house them until they find a project that they're used for. And so this project, everything that's included, all the fabrics that included were in my stash, except for the pride flag fabric on the very edge. And so I really started kind of pairing these together. And if I go to the next slide, you'll see this is a bit of my process and work, both my portfolio, but also just part of the process for this specific project. So you see in the middle, there's some things from my stash that I was playing around with, laying the colors out. And I found this, used to be a bed sheet actually, this kind of lovely late 80s, early 90s fabric, and I just fell in love with it. And although I can't live through Adrienne's memories, I kind of envisioned maybe the Billy DeFrank Center had something like this when she was kind of coming of age there and finding her community. And I really believe in the ability of textiles specifically to kind of have a memory and sort of contain how we live in the world. For example, there's a specific pattern of curtains that I always think of. If I see them, I just think of my grandmother's house immediately. And I think that there's something about the fabric of our lives that is really important. And so this was something that kind of spoke to me and I wanted to use in the project. So that became the back panel that she's leaning against. A really important thing for me was to display mention of the LGBT youth space, because that's something that Adrienne's really helped build. And I wanted to create this pocket which had the colors, the LGBTQ plus colors, and then the center. And that was probably one of my favorite parts of building this project. I found that fabric and I created this pocket, and I actually found old jean fabric and I kind of stitched it out, and it's called reverse applique. You stitch it down, you cut it out. So I cut out this little, the logo, and it was just such a satisfying thing to watch it emerge. And I think also very symbolic of the way that we build our own spaces. So it was really kind of a fun moment to put the pocket on. So that's why I kind of included those two moments there. It's kind of the moment where the project really felt like it was really getting going for me. Yeah, and I've also included some of my other work here just to kind of contextualize the kind of work, the kind of space. This was actually a pretty new project for me. I tend to work in 3D quilting. There's a traffic cone there. You can see that's 3D quilts, and also the caution tape and the chain. Those are all 3D quilts. So actually working in a flat medium was new for me, but also just really a joyful experience to create a portrait. So let's see, and then my last slide. So my last slide, so you can find me and more of my work. Like I said, this is a really great project to work on, and I was really honored to be part of it. So thank you.
I'm muted. Isabella, that was awesome. Thank you. I'm glad we got a chance to see a glimpse of the way how you move forward in creating this work. So I've mentioned it before in other episodes. I know the San Jose Museum of Quilts and Textiles quite well. I once worked there, and I appreciate the art form and I respect it immensely. And I am not a quilter, nor am I a textile artist. I just had I was very lucky to be able to work there. So so I mentioned that because you created this work in, I think, maybe less than a month. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes. I think
That's
from
impressive.
start to finish, it was 2 weeks of working. Yeah, it was very fast. For those who don't do fiber art, I don't think they realize just the level of time and care it takes each stitch. You know, I mean, I use a machine for most of my things, but even so, it takes a lot of time and care. But it was very important to me that it be a physical thing and it be made in that way. Like I mentioned briefly in my presentation, I really believe in the power of fabric to kind of like show our identities. It's something we cloak ourselves with. It's something we fill our homes with. We really use it to express our identity. And so I really wanted to make it out of that. And I also, initially I wanted to make my banner and actually just hang it up, but which was crazy because why would you ever do that? But I still wanted it to be usable as that, as a banner. And the result was actually really quite amazing because it was life size, so it felt like she was there, like Adrienne was right there, and her radiant smile and that very welcoming posture she has is it kind of really shines through. And I also thought it had a really great callback to, which I didn't intend when I was making it, but to some of the protest banners and other things that I've seen from different protests, historical and recent. It almost feels like something that you could carry in a parade, and it would feel right at home there. And I really like that was an accidental thing, but it kind of came that way, and that was a nice surprise.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, so I remember looking at it when we saw it in person, and I don't remember. It is quilted, right? It is a quilted. Okay, but are you calling it a quilt, or are you calling it? What are you calling it?
I'm gonna call it a wall hanging.
A wall hanging. Okay.
Just because it would never serve as an actual quilt on a bed or anything like that. I mean, quilt doesn't need to go in a bed, obviously.
Right.
I work at the quilt museum, so I should know that. But I think part of it too is that her face and her hands are painted. I really wanted to capture her likeness very well and make it very lifelike. And I liked the idea of having her face be rendered very nicely, but then her clothing be more made of fabric and have that sort of feel.
What brought you to paint her? You know, you did everything else with the textile, and your background. You know, you showed your board of the different work that you've done, which is 3-dimensional textile artwork, which I think is amazing. By the way, I didn't realize you did that as well. But the painting, I mean, I've seen that on quilts before, obviously, because I've also worked at the museum, and you get to see all these amazing textile artworks. But I'm curious why you chose to go that route.
Yeah. So, well, I actually started out as a painter. I painted for a very, very long time. And when I was in college in my senior year, I spent the whole summer before my thesis year doing these very large scale. Oh, hello.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah. So I spent the summer doing these really large scale paintings of fabric still lifes, like curtains arranged on the wall and all this crazy stuff. And I actually, my very first critique, I had an artist named what's her Sarah Oppenheimer. Which she does these amazing, very architectural works where she kind of actually goes through the house and if you aren't familiar with her work, you should really look it up.
I feel like I have heard her name before. If you
Yeah.
describe, go ahead. keep
Yeah, so
going.
she'll take these very large pieces of glass and she'll actually cut into the space and make them go through the floor and the ceiling. And so the work is actually becomes part of the house and part of the
Wow.
architecture. And it's really interesting. And so she was a really great artist to come in. She has a very different perspective than a painter or someone who's trained as a painter.
Mhm.
And she took one look at my work and she was like, if you love fabric so much, just use fabric. And I was like, you know what? She's right. So yeah, from then on, I just started kind of playing with fabric, and slowly over time, the painting has subsided a little bit and the fabric has taken its place as my preferred medium.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
and
love that. Okay.
yeah, and I guess to return to your question, why is her face painted? I felt that I could only do the justice to that like really lovely expression she has,
Yeah,
how welcoming it is in
yeah,
paint. So that's
yeah.
for the reason I wanted to paint her.
Makes sense. Yeah, it looks just like her. It looks just like Adrienne. I love it. I was just saying in the previous conversation, I've given tours, and I was showing some friends Post Street where your banner is. And as we were walking down, somebody was driving through and said, "Did you find yours? Because we found ours." And they pointed at Adrienne. So it's getting all this attention. People were looking for it, and it's just the colors you chose. I'm glad. I mean, purple, obviously that's our color for Artists Honoring Women for the Womanhood Project, but hearing the symbology behind that and how there is this connection between, like, not only her Adrienne's experience kind of being a part early in the community, right, at Billy DeFrank Center, but then also her experience now as this older adult, I guess. I don't know if that's maybe that's the right way to say it, but with purple being part of LGBTQ youth space imagery, right? It's just like this full circle, and I think that's fantastic that we were able to learn that, because I didn't realize. I've been in the Billy DeFrank Center, and I don't remember there being purple walls, but I believe you, so it makes total sense. And I like that you talked about reverse applique, because that also is this really interesting artistic form that it is symbolic to the way we we live our lives, right? Like, we have to carve out. We're already there. We just have to carve out the way it looks. And I've never thought about it in that way. Like I said, I've worked at the museum. I've learned all these terms while I was there, and you saying that now, after I know the museum for over 10 years now, it's like a light bulb went off for me. So I appreciate you sharing that. Have you done any other work that commemorates women or individuals in the art form, in your textile art form, or even before in portraiture or painting?
So this is the first public art project I've been a part of,
Okay.
which is a different experience. I've always done work that personally interested me.
Mhm.
And this was kind of a good opportunity to step out of that and honor somebody else and their accomplishments. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of my work is about women's issues, and specifically the value of women's artistic labor. That's
Mhm.
one of the reasons that I find quilting just such a fascinating medium, is because if you put a painting, abstract painting, and a quilt side by side, they share so many visual elements, but yet for so many years, quilts were not valued at all.
Right.
And I think they really come, even though it would take so much more time and energy to make a quilt than to make the
Yeah.
painting. And I think it really has to do with how we value women's labor and women's creative labor. And that's one of the reasons this medium is so important to me. And I think it's been such a treat to work at the Quilt Museum
Yeah.
and learn more about all the artists there. So
Yeah. I love that you said that, because it reminded me of exactly what this project was, Anonymous No More. Right. I mean, the art form of quilters, they're also, a lot of the women didn't sign their art either, right? Because maybe they didn't consider themselves artists, you know, because it was
Society
about
told them they weren't artists.
exactly, exactly. So you've definitely done that, and hello, of course, you know, I asked that question and I'm realizing, wait, you already answered that. I want to bring, actually, we have Adrienne here. I want to bring Adrienne in the room, give her a chance to share with us her experience of seeing her. So, hello, Adrienne.
Good evening, y'all. Hi, Isabella.
Hello.
Thanks for spending some time with us this evening. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So, how did it feel to learn that you're being honored for the work that you've done in your community? I
Okay.
mean,
Candidly, I was shook. I was like, this is a tremendous honor, me. You know, so I had to grapple with that for a little bit. Imposter syndrome kicked in for me. But I want to just give Isabella immense props for just being so warm and so patient and so willing to just chit chat with me, get to know my story. So there's that piece, right? Just like really, really lovely to work with. But her work, oh my goodness.
Right?
I was blown away. First of all, I had no idea what to expect because she's a textile artist. But when I saw the final product and I got to see it in person, I was privileged to see it in person. It was mind blowing. I mean, it's such a tremendous honor. And I'm just really glad that we were paired up. And, you know, I have like my people like sending me selfies from Post Street with the banner. So it's just been a really, it's a source of pride for me. It's humbling for me. And it's just been a joy to be a part of this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I got to learn a little bit more about you as well. But you know, what I didn't know about Isabella, and she shared, is that she was new to San Jose. So here she is. She got to know about your story, right, and about the LGBTQ community. And I think one of our earlier conversations was about Wiggsy, who is a huge part of the LGBTQ plus community. You know, when you learned that Isabella was new to San Jose, did you feel like you should be sharing other stories? I mean, this is all about storytelling, right? We're really trying to encourage people to learn about what women have and are contributing to our county.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly felt like kind of giving my like maybe not an individual, maybe not, you know, sharing a specific individual, but certainly my history with the DeFrank Center. Because the DeFrank Center actually, the purple that I reference, the DeFrank Center was not the DeFrank Center that it is today. It was actually a purple house in the parking lot. And the building that it currently occupies, I think, was a dance studio, or a dance studio had moved out of it. And the DeFrank Center at that time, this was the early aughts, was just a critical piece of my adolescence and finding community. And like, I was already out at the time, but like, I was like my people, my, you know, other young people who I can identify with. And so for a lot of our youth, right, the youth that we serve at the youth space, they weren't even around at that time. So I think talking about the history of them as an entity and how much they've been able to grow, you know, and how grassroots they were. And now, you know, they're huge and they're such an important part of our community. That was what I really wanted to kind of shed light on.
I love that. And what were, when you realized that you were creating this textile wall hanging, which I'm calling it a quilt to myself, but were you like, what is this art form? You know, like for you, did you know what I mean? Like, did it turn, did that kind of go on the other side? Like here you are, Isabella, learning about the LGBTQ community here and like the beginnings of 20 plus years. For you, Adrienne, like, you know about the Quilt and Textile Museum before? I'm curious.
I did, but through Isabella, and we were neighbors. We were just, you know, 2 blocks. The youth space used to be right down the block.
Oh, that's right.
But I had never been inside until my partnership with Isabella. So I got to see it, and I had no idea. It was stunning in there.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? You know, once we get introduced to these new people or programs or you know, ways of engaging, the doors that open up, You know,
Absolutely.
I feel like this project, this is just the beginning. Like I said when I introduced today's conversations, this is the beginning of so many others. We're going to be able to learn about the women that have contributed to other parts of this county. And like I said, this is 15, it's 15 cities. You know, I'm just like hearing everybody's stories. You are the last artist I get to speak to, the last honor I get to speak to for artists honoring women for um, this conversation series. And I'm like now realizing like, wow, you know, this has been a lot and it's been incredible. And Isabella, what you created, it's talking about a contemporary person, but about the history, while at the same time using an art form that was not respected, or the artist didn't feel like they had needed to be respected, but is kind of coming back to life again. You know what I mean? Like like the way I see, like you said, Adrienne, the Frank Center was not what it is now, and now it's like everybody knows it, or a lot of people know it. You know, I say everybody because I know a lot of people who know it, and I feel like it's the same thing with textile art, the art form. I don't know. There's like this parallel there for me because I'm really close to this conversation, but I feel like there's a parallel where these worlds they make sense next to each other. It's like you guys were supposed to meet, the two of you, and I'm just incredibly grateful that you did, because you created this artwork that now Adrienne owns.
Yes, I had to. It's just, I mean, had to.
Right? Yeah, and you're tall, so you know that's a big piece. Well,
Yeah,
you know, I just
it's tall. It was so fun to see her hold it. That was my favorite moment. Like you put in all this effort, and then she held it up, and I was like, yes.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I love
If it were
I
my
love
partner, it would have been over her head.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I'm 5 foot, so I get it. Yeah. So I have a question for both of you. I've been asking people, are there any other women that you feel like we should be nominating, or groups of women? Who else would you like to see represented through this project? I know you're new, Isabella, but there could, you know, who knows? You may have met somebody while you've been here.
Yeah, I actually have a few I can think of,
yes.
and it's really for having worked at the Quilt Museum now for about a year, and we are going to celebrate our 45th year. Sorry, my cat is really wanting to be part of the conversation.
I love it.
Yeah, we're celebrating our 45th year on May 17th of this year.
Wow.
And through that, I've gotten to read a lot about our history and learn more about the amazing women who actually decided to start this museum. There's Gloria Debs Khan, and then there's Sylvia Moore. Sylvia Moore actually just passed away recently. Yeah, and they with a group of other women, they really just decided, we are going to make a museum that's dedicated to quilts, and they became the first museum in the country to create a museum and say quilts are an art form. We decide it is right now, and I think that's just so special, and it's just another example of carving out a space for yourself, which I think is really important and something that Adrienne does so well.
Yes.
Yeah, so those would be two. And then, of course, also our recent director, Nancy Bavor, she just retired.
Yes.
And she has done some amazing work for the museum, some amazing scholarship. She was part of the recent exhibition we had, which covered art quilts over the last 50 years. And I learned so much about the history of quilting, and then the women who claimed it as their art form and really made it their own and made their own space. And so, yeah, those three I think I would nominate.
I think those are great suggestions. I know all three of them. So, but I did not realize that Sylvia passed away. So, thank you for sharing that. Yes, that's actually, yeah, thank you. I got lots of words on that one. And Adrienne, is there anybody that you?
Sure. So my dear friend and colleague, Leah Cohen, is a social worker at Independence High School. And just the depths that she goes to support students who are experiencing any number of traumas on a daily basis at school, just above and beyond. And I mean, I would just give an even broader shout out to the social workers at Eastside Union High School District, because there are a number of women who just are in the trenches, supporting students, again, who are experiencing any number of things, and working really hard to ensure that their students have exactly what they need to thrive and be successful at school.
I think that's a fantastic suggestion. Go Sixers! I went to Indy. That's my high school.
Yes,
So,
the world is so small.
The world is very small. That's right. Yes. But I'm with you on that. Oh my goodness. And that's one that I don't think we've heard from community members yet. So I appreciate you mentioning the high school social workers, working with those students that are all levels of spectrum that needs support and help, and need security. All right.
Absolutely.
So thank you both. It's been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you. Thank you, Adrienne, for joining us this evening. Thank you, Isabella, for creating this amazing artwork. And thank you to our honorees and guests who joined today's conversation. I want to thank artists Kathy, Alexandra, and Isabella for spending time with us today and sharing all of your experiences and everything you've learned. It's been fantastic hearing from all of you and getting to know you a little bit more. If you want to stay involved with the Womanhood Project, here are some ways you can participate. So join in on the Artists Honoring Women conversation every third Monday. We will have more after this. You can check out the project website for updates. The project website's below. And Womanhood is a community-driven project, so we invite you to let us know the people and groups who have made significant historical contributions to your region and the county. You can nominate a woman by going to the website on the screen, right there. Or you can also help us locate and identify site opportunities for women's public recognition across the county. Don't forget, the county is 15 cities and 5 districts. You can do this by answering the following questions. What areas in your neighborhood or community hold historical significance? Are there open gathering spaces, trails, buildings, and other opportunities that we should be aware of? Let us know by pinning your ideas and feedback on our Womanhood map, or you can text message your comments and nominations, and they will land on the map in the district you text to. So you can see those numbers here. Go ahead and take a screenshot of that. You can visit the Co-Urbanize website to read what other community members have shared for inspiration for your input. So thank you again for joining us today. We're so excited to be able to share all of the stories of the honorees and the artists. We hope you enjoyed this 6th episode of Artists Honoring Women.